Okay, today I'm going to go over some spot market stuff. Um, let's make sure everything's recording. Yep. Okay. So here's truck stop load board. Here is DAT load board. I have a subscription to both. Um, I right now this is just dry van that I was looking up. I do like both load boards for certain things. DAT I think would be better if you were running dry van. I think I would choose to use DAT. And for flatbed, I think I would choose to use truck stop. I love some features of truck stop. One feature I love is this. We can put a minimum rate in. So we could say a minimum rate of 750. So we're not seeing the small loads that just get wild on the rate per mile, but don't do us any good. So, and then you can also sort by distance. So let's say we don't want to look at anything under 150 and we don't want to look at anything over 750. And that shrinks down the available loads to that region. This would be more this would be nice for if you're trying to stay in the south. So if we look at flatbed, here's the map for flatbed as of the 24th of August. It's the most recent one that we have, actually. I don't know why we don't have a more recent one. This is DAT's map they put out. They should have had, they normally have one every Tuesday. Huh. Wonder why they don't have an updated one. Anyway, if you look at the map here, this is pretty standard for flatbed. This region here, this red region is going to be where you want to stay to get highest rate per mile. The problem with staying in this little tiny region is you don't get very many miles. So that's always a battle between staying in a hot market and getting miles. So, but if you were trying to do that, Truck Stop Load Board offers the ability to really dial in your search to where you don't see the stuff that you don't want to see. Because a lot of times, like if here we're looking in Birmingham, Alabama, and let's say we take this off and we take this off, we have 1,921 loads. This video might take 5 hours if I wanted to look at all. It might take longer than that. And by the time I get done with 1,900 loads, there's going to be another 300 that's posted. So we just can't look at that many loads. So we have to get them down. One thing I like to do is put them a minimum rate of 1,000. I try to hit $1,000 a day. We normally go a little short of that. We normally hit about 850 to 950 a day. But if we're trying to stay in the south, then we could put a maximum of 750 from Birmingham. That'll kind of limit where we go. And then we can sort. Now I use the load or the Chrome extension called Load Hunter that attaches to the Chrome that's a Chrome extension that attaches and affects things on this load board and on DAT. For example, we get a second line here in bold, and that is the rate per mile with the deadhead, which is really, really nice. So you can be a lot quicker at figuring out. If you look at this one in 490 a mile, that's great. Well, actually, it's 436 a mile once we finish our deadhead. That's also oversized. FO is flatbed over dimension. So here's a Birmingham to Kentucky. That's a pretty good rate. That's a broker we're set up with. Tarps, comment, flatbed, 6-foot tarp, straps, edge protectors, lumber. This would be a fine load. I'd love this load. And this gives us our total trip of 245 miles. This is a great load. So Birmingham, Alabama is in the flatbed world, the Chicago for the van, right? It's the best market in the country for flatbed. There is tons of loads there, and there's not very many trucks there, so rates go up. So this load would be a fantastic load. Like I said, this is BMAC. This is a broker that we're set up with already. We've had good luck with them. They don't have a phone number. They just have an email address, so we could email them on this one. We don't have a truck there today. This is Sunday. I thought it's not good to do these videos on a weekend for Flatbed. Flatbed's very Monday through Friday. So um, I'm surprised we're picking up such good loads, honestly. But it's Birmingham, so all the brokers are probably posting on Sunday. When was this posted? Posted 7 minutes ago. Yeah. Yeah, but see, look at all these ones were posted on Friday, over 9 hours ago. Here's a couple that were just posted. Um, but really, it's not good to be doing these videos on a weekend, because we're picking up loads that either are leftovers from Friday and might have already been booked, or we're just not picking up very much freight. In other words, with this criteria, $1,000 minimum and a no more than 750 miles, there's 804 loads available. On Monday at about 10 in the morning, they'll probably be, double that. I think I have 150-mile radius. What do I have in here? Yeah, 150-mile radius. So, and this is, like I said, this is Flatbed, and this is the truck stop load board. We could try to go over here and let's type in Birmingham, and we'll change it to Flatbed. Let's look at from now until Wednesday. Let's see what we pop up here. Where's the number? I haven't used this in a while. Normally there's a number that pops up, total available loads. Oh, it's down here. Results 1,000. I wonder if it's limiting the results to 1,000, because that's a pretty exact number. I'm kind of wondering why that is. Let's try changing something here. Let's do 200 miles and see if that number changes. Oops. Oh, 1,600. That was a really random even number before. So 1,600 loads within 200 miles of Birmingham on Sunday. So definitely a good market for Flatbed. Let's take it down to a 100-mile radius. See, now that's weird. We took it down to 100, and now we've got 2,600 results. You see what I mean? Something was weird. And they've changed this. I haven't used DAT in a couple of weeks, and they've updated this whole system. Either that or my load or my Chrome extension has changed a lot of things, because here's that BMAC one. So this looks a lot different than I'm used to seeing on DAT. Now this feature here, this map, this is a feature of the Chrome extension. What else is? I think this is a feature of the Chrome extension, down this little box, and also this RTS factorable. So this is they're rated green C in RTS's system. Means they're factorable, they're good. There's no problem working with them at all. So that all comes with the Chrome extension. If you take the Chrome extension off, we don't get any of that data. We have to look their number, or look their credit up with whatever way you look credit up. I use the RTS system. That seems to, ever since I've been using that, I've not had a single broker not pay, so I feel like it works pretty well. Armstrong, we're set up with them as well. Where's this going? This would also be a great load. Very short, only 700 miles, $700, sorry. So this is where I kind of like the truck stop better, because we can't put in a minimum rate. So we're going to see all this stuff. If we sort by, I am sorting by rate per mile. So if we sort by rate per mile, we're going to get all these little bitty loads. I mean, we're not going to book a $450 load. Oh, it's 350 a mile. Yeah, who cares? It's 450 bucks. It doesn't do us any good. You know what I mean? Like it barely covers our break even point for the day. It barely covers, payments and insurance and everything else for the day. That it's not worth booking it unless we had a load cancel and it was getting late and that one was right around the corner. Then we could book it to kind of fill up the day. But we're not going to actively look to book something 450, even 700. I've done it before, but it's normally not something I intend to do, especially in Birmingham. If we were somewhere else, we might think about doing that. But so this is how the DAT looks on the dashboard. If we go to the dashboard on DAT and switch it to Flatbed, why is this? There we go. So this kind of gives us a breakdown of the states. Alabama. It's weird they don't have Alaska on here. I wonder if Alaska had 0 loads. Normally Alaska's first, but 106 loads out of Alabama. Now you say, well, wait a minute, that seems a little low. Well, that's currently right now on Sunday. That pick up today. So on the search, we looked all the way until Wednesday. So there's a lot of loads posted today that are picking up Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. This is picking up right now. So there's only 106 loads in Alabama, the whole state, that's picking up right now. So this is why I say it's not good to do these searches on the weekend, because you get data that just, there's 4 loads out in Nevada. Oklahoma's 5 loads. Come on. Where's Texas? Where'd Texas go? Where are the T's? 28 loads out of Texas? Come on. Not true. It is true as far as picking up today, but nothing picks up or delivers on a weekend in the flatbed world. Let's switch that to van, and we'll see here. There's probably a lot more. Yep. I don't know why that's not going away. You have to click weird spot for it to go away. Okay. Now I don't understand this. Oh, okay. I must have clicked something wrong. Okay, so California, 220 mile or loads available right now. Even the dry van's pretty low on the weekend. I'd say it's a little better. There's a few more loads that pick up and deliver on the weekend in the dry van space. But most of the brokerages are closed over the weekend anyway. So even if you could pick up and deliver, you most likely would have had to book your loads on Friday to make sure you have your paperwork ready. Okay, let's go back here. I just kind of wanted to go through and do some mapping, or pick some loads randomly and see what they look like. So this would pick up tomorrow on Monday. Birmingham to Russellville, Kentucky. This was a good load. Is there anything better? Let's see. West Virginia, that's a really nice, oh, that's an oversize. That's not really anything better. I think that's a good one. Let's go ahead and take that one. Hypothetically, 6-foot tarps lumber, that's an easy peasy load, no big deal. And we are going to go back over to the spot market deal. Oops, hang on, I didn't remember everything. Okay, we got 245 miles for 1164. And that was 0 deadhead because it was right in Birmingham. We're assuming that we're parked in Birmingham. So there's our load that we've taken. Let's assume that we've taken it, and we're going to keep everything else the same, but we're going to change our destination to Russellville, Kentucky. Let's shrink this down because we don't want to get too much deadhead going on. So again, we're sorting by rate per mile. We're keeping $1,000 as a minimum. We're doing a maximum of 750 miles. That'll cut out some of the Florida loads, I think. That still takes us to Ocala. So let's see here. We've got down to Georgia. That's a great broker. I love that broker. Legal, no, see, legal tarps. Okay, that's easy. There's no reason not to take this load. Where are we going here? We're going to Ellenwood. And we've got a total miles. So we've got a deadhead of 25. We've got a trip, a loaded miles of 288. We've got a total miles of 314. So 314 for $1,000. Let's put that in our calc. $1,000 for 314. Okay, and then we'll go back here. We'll change edit search. Change it to Ellenwood. Keep everything else the same. We'll search in Ellenwood. This would be assuming that we took those two loads back to back. Let's see what else we got here. Back to Tennessee. I don't know that broker. Let's see if they're any good. No, they're not. They're not factorable. What's their MC number? Where is it? They don't even have. Oh wait, there's their MC number. But we're not going to take that load because we probably won't get paid. DNL, we're set up with them. They're a great brokerage. That's a Conestoga. Going to North Carolina. That's that looks like a familiar broker. They are an A rated. Pretty sure there's several companies named similar. Trident. I think we're set up with them. Here's Sherway again. Let's see, Georgia to Virginia, Myrtle Beach, $1,400 to go to Myrtle Beach. Let's see, Florida. What was up here? I forget. Those were brokers that we don't want to work with. Okay. Tennessee. I like Tennessee a little bit better than the Carolinas. We have a little bit better. Integrity Express, we're set up with them. They're a good brokerage. That's a fairly good rate. Tarps, one pick, one drop. First come, first serve, 24 hours. Interesting. Okay. That would be fine. Let's see if we can find anything better. North Carolina, so another reason I like Truck Stop is it lists the state here. So if you kind of know where you want to go, or you kind of know where the good market is, you can kind of forget about the cities since you're not going to recognize the cities, and just watch this column on the way down. When you scroll down, Florida, we can kind of ignore all that. And we could go to California for $3. That would probably work out in our favor, but maybe not as good as going somewhere else like Tennessee. Here's that Integrity Express again. This is the one I was looking at. So I kind of feel like that might be our best bet. Here's a little bit better. More money, Jake Brake. I love them. They're a great brokerage. $1,200. That's $260 a mile after our deadhead, and a 58-mile deadhead. Let's see what this is. 48,000 pounds. Must tarp. Fine. No big deal. Back up to Kentucky. Okay. I think we could take that one. I'm not going to look too hard here. We're just doing a test, right? So let's go ahead and take that one. Okay, so it's a total after deadhead of 448 for 1,200. Oops. 448. And then we end up in Kentucky. So we're going to change this over to Kentucky. Not very many loads over there in Kentucky on the weekend. Okay, so we're going to undo that. So if it's under like 20 something loads, they extend it, which they way extend your deadhead or whatever. So now we're in Kentucky. We're looking in Kentucky. We've got some pretty good loads here. $350 a mile to go to Ohio. Interesting. Jones Transportation. Have we worked for them? There's another company named Jones Brothers, I want to say, that we've worked for a lot. Not sure if we've worked for them. They are a good brokerage, and we've had an MC number for so long, and it's such a strong MC number that we have no problem working with pretty much any broker. That the only reason we put a restriction on is if we can't get paid. We don't want, but most I haven't had a single broker that can't work with us. Let's see, strap and go. That's pretty simple. 52-mile deadhead away, going up to Ohio. I think that'd be fine. I have no problem with Ohio. Let's go ahead and take that. Let's see. Is there anything better? I always want to look around. Here's a much higher revenue, but it's going to Pennsylvania. We could go back down to Georgia, but that's not very high revenue. Yeah, I think this is a good load. We'll take this one just for the test. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. We forgot to put some stuff in here. Okay, $1,100 for 304 on the mileage. 304 on the mileage, and we're going to go back over here. Now we're going to, oops, let's start here. We're going to go back and go to Ohio. Sherman, let's see, what's going on here? 37 loads available. And what do we got here? Michigan. Don't love Michigan. Here's back to Kentucky, Ohio. Decatur, Alabama. Let's do that. I know it doesn't pay real well, but that kind of completes our run. We would have started in Birmingham and ended in Decatur. Those are both very close to each other, so it would kind of complete the run. Start and end in the same spot, so to speak, North Alabama. No tarp steel beam, no Conestoga safety test in English. Safety test in English. Interesting. You got to speak English. People who can't speak English, you don't have the opportunity to get this load. Sorry. I don't know if we've worked with these guys before. They're good, so there's no reason we couldn't. 603 for, what was it? About 1,100. Okay, let's do that, and that'll complete our test. So 1,100 for 603. Boom. So that's our week. Let's see, that is 5 loads. So that's a load per day. That'd be a perfect weekly run. You know, we very, very short hauls in the south, very, very high rate per mile. We've started in Alabama, ended in Alabama, $5,500 a week. That's picking up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, picking up on Friday, and then this would be probably finishing this on the following Monday, probably holding that over the weekend is how that would work. So we'd get a reset on Sunday, and we deliver that Monday, and then we'd start again in Alabama on Monday. So it'd be a perfect week. Not bad. 272 a mile, all miles. Remember, all of these miles was including our deadhead. So that would be 1,914 miles with deadhead. And this is, if we add, I had this set up for adding mileage. So that it's actually better. So what this is if I use this for a different thing, is if we go off of averages, then I average out that 7 or 10 or 12% deadhead, and it kind of figures out more of an average. So actually, this was 291 a mile, excuse me, because we had a 7% extra deadhead in there when we were already figuring deadhead. This 19, because remember, when we looked at this was including our deadhead. Because we had deadhead and trip, we always took this, was with this mapping. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good. In other words, we might have driven more miles than this. And it's always the case, because if it says Atlanta and it's across town, you might have a 20-mile deadhead, even though the system says 0. But still, that's not bad. That's not a bad week. 291 a mile, you know, $5,564 for the week. Not bad. I prefer to get about 6,000 per week, of course. but 5,500 is profitable, especially when we're running low mileage at a high rate. That means fuel was very minimal, and it means that we worked all week and we had the weekend off, right? We picked this up on Friday. We pretty much made it, you know, most of the way on Friday, and we finished off the drive Saturday morning, got parked Saturday by noon probably, and then reset on Sunday and delivered Monday. So that's not a bad week. 291. I might have to go over there. It looking pretty good over in the south. And according to the DAT map, that's where you want to be, right? We pretty much stayed in the south. I mean, we popped up into Kentucky and Ohio, but pretty much kind of ran that area. Now, it's interesting. Right now, the West Coast seems to be on fire, but you got to be careful with the West Coast because it seems to be on fire, but only going to places that you don't want to go. But let's look at, before we end this video, I want to look in Seattle. Now we're going to have to change our 750. We need to get rid of that because undo. Okay. So once again, we're looking rate per mile with a minimum of 1,000. So we can go down to Redmond, Oregon. Oops, Tacoma to Paul, Idaho. See, kind of the middle of nowhere, Idaho. I mean, yeah, it pays $3 a mile, but we're going to have to damn near deadhead back to Portland for that. Here's one going to Anderson. That's North California. That could be okay. Watford City. See, no one really wants to go to Montana. Reno, Nevada, that could be all right. Florida for 72. Wait a minute. That'd be good. If I was there, hazardous and team. Okay. 207 to go to Miami. I would consider that if I was there. That's a lot of miles. I don't mind running at low mileage if we run a lot of miles, because it ends up being high on the revenue. But you see what I mean? The map says it's a hot spot, but when you look, all of the loads that are any good are going to places you don't want to go. Dillon, Montana for 230. No, probably not going to work, right? So yeah, you got to be careful. Okay, let's look one more play. Well, let's see. Let's look in. Oops, in Ontario. Ontario, California, Southern California. Kind of always like to look there just to see what's going on. It seems to me like the loads out of Southern California going to Colorado are paying really well. Of course, no one wants to go to Colorado, but Big Sky, Montana, of course, these pay well, right? We'd expect that. Not much else. We'd expect the Utah ones to pay pretty well, and that doesn't pay as well as I thought it would. So I'm not really seeing a reason to go to. The reason that we might go to Southern California is to get a lot of miles, right? If we're in, like, say, if we're in the South, Birmingham, you can take a load over to Southern California, which is a lot of miles over the weekend, right? Pick up on a Thursday, deliver on a Monday, and then you could grab a load out of Southern Cal, going to Denver for hopefully $2.80 a mile, and then you grab a load out of Denver for $1.20 or $1.40 that goes back to Birmingham, and that overall run will work out because we ran a lot of miles at, say, $2.15 a mile over to Southern Cal, and then $2.80 a mile to Denver, and then Denver back to the hot market for $1.20, right? And you work all those numbers out, and it ends up probably coming out to over $2 a mile, even though we ran $1.40 out of Colorado. Now, do we want to do any looking around on van. Oops, that's the wrong button. Let's look in the hottest market in the country for van, and let's see what we could do for van. Of course, I don't know what I'm doing for vans, so this could be bad. And I really kind of like it to be in. The problem with using DAT is we can't dial in our search, so we just pick up everything. And if we sort by rate per mile, we're going to pick up all the little loads. PA, that's a damn good load. Unless there's something wrong with it. Yeah, drop trailer at shipper. Wait, drop trailer shipment. Drop van trailer on. Pick up on the, oh my lord. You got to drop the trailer for 4 days. See, not worth it. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna do van. I mean, I suspect you could do fairly well with van if you really knew what you were doing and you stayed in a tight market. I hear the Midwest is where to be in the van. If you stayed in that tight market, I think you could do well. What I think would happen if we did that same test with van, we'd end up coming in, at a very high rate per mile, probably not 290, but we'd probably come in at 230, 240, which would be very, very nice. But problem is, I think our revenue would be lower. We'd probably be down in the $4,800 per week. And that just starts making it a little more difficult to survive. You've got to have your costs really under control, because even this is hard to survive. You look at 291 and you say, oh, that's great. Yeah, but that's only $5,500 a week, right? What are your fixed costs? What is your insurance? What is your truck and trailer payment? What is your fuel bill? I mean, fuel bill is going to be pretty light at only less than $2,000 or 2,000 miles per week, but still. And a lot of the southern areas have much lower fuel prices as well, like Alabama and Louisiana, and if you get into Texas and Oklahoma. But so the 291 looks great, but this doesn't look so great, right? A weekly revenue, I mean, that'd be what? That'd be $2,200 a month if you ran all 4 weeks of the month with only resets, never going home. So if you go home a week and run 3 weeks, that's only a 16,000, 17,000 per month. That's pretty light, and that gets difficult. So that's why I don't look at the rate per mile as much. Normally I look at the revenue per week is what we like to keep high, because we have to pay bills, right? And just making this high number that we can brag about over here is wonderful, but it doesn't add up. So okay, what I'm going to do, I like to end these videos with going over our actual numbers, because this hypothetical, it looks great. Like, I don't think I've ever actually done this, right? I've done a lot of weeks where I've ran the south, but I haven't actually ever done 291 a mile. The reason that is because this is assuming that I'm able to take whatever load is on the board. This is assuming that the load I call on is not taken and I can actually get it, right? How many times have you called on loads and, oh, it's taken? You call on this load, oh, I want to take this $5 a mile load. Oh, it's taken, or there's 12-month authority, or there's something weird. 1 million general liability. See, we'd actually be able to take this one. We have all that. We have an extra 1 million aggregate and all that stuff. So, but how many times do you call on loads and you find out there's a reason you can't take it, right? First of all, the most common one is it's taken. It's posted, but it's not available. It's already been booked. So what ends up happening is when we do these tests, they always come in a little bit better than we can actually do in the real world. So let's look at my actual numbers. We're going to look at Jeff's number because I haven't been running over the road. I've been playing around in the oil field for a while and haven't had real good numbers to look at. So here is Jeff's last hitch. This ran from August 19th to September 3rd. And this is what he's actually done with me dispatching him. Now, this was mostly long hauls. We tried to take it pretty long. Did pretty awful on the rate per mile. $1.91 all in with deadhead. We had a 9% deadhead and a total deadhead of 688 miles. So if we take out our 688 miles, we had a loaded mile of 209, which is not all that good. If you look here, we went from home, which is Airway Heights. Wait a minute. Yeah, so I forgot about this. We ended his hitch in the middle because we switched some trucks around in order to get the numbers correct. We switched his hitch in the middle of his hitch. So he was over in Washington, Western Washington. He picked up a load and then he fueled up, and that's when this Smoky Point started. So that's why these mileages are the same. So we started this hitch when he already had a load on board at a fuel up, just so that the fuel mileage was even. So at the end of this load, this went to Florida, Winter Haven, Florida. So this was Washington to Florida, really big load, 53.50 on the rate, only $1.61 per mile. Then we deadheaded out of Florida, picked up in Georgia, got to Georgia, and we remained at $1.61 because of all the deadhead, even though the load was booked at $2.50 a mile. Then we went Kentucky to, wait a minute, hang on, dropped in Kentucky, picked in Kentucky, and delivered in Illinois, Indiana. And that was a 232-mile run for 860. See, this is one of the times I booked a load under $1,000 for 271 a mile. But it only raised our rate all in, year to date, so to speak, on that hitch to $1.69. Then we booked a load out of Indiana going to Washington, another long load, $2.13 a mile all in, but only raised our rate to $1.80. Then we booked a load out of Tacoma going to Montana, and then he deadheaded home from Montana because he lives up in North Idaho. And so that was $4.06 a loaded mile, but only raised our rate to $1.93. And by the time we deadheaded home, $1.91. So that's the real world, what we were actually able to do. Now, one thing about this is during this time, I was buying this truck. I was traveling all over the place. I was flirting around with oil field stuff. I was doing all kinds of weird stuff. So I was not booking loads very good. Put it this way, I was putting very little time into picking a load. I was just jumping on the load board. Here's a good rate, take it. And it got Jeff miles, it got Jeff revenue, and it got his driver salary to where it was needed to be, right? To where the driver made money, the company made money. Good, let's go. I wasn't too focused on this, and it shows, right? So here's his fuel mileage. That's before we deduct out his APU gallons. So if we deduct out his APU gallons, which is 36.8, so his actual fuel mileage was 8.38. Because we were all over the West Coast, we paid a lot for fuel, $3.53 a gallon for fuel, an average of 2 cents a mile for DEF. Our DEF fuel mileage was $1.98, and our cost per mile for fuel was 43.9 cents. That's higher than it normally would be because our fuel cost was quite high. Just because we had a lot of Montana fuel ups and a lot of Washington fuel ups, and so the cost per gallon was pretty high. Plus, I think fuel's going up again, hasn't it been? I think fuel's been going up. Haven't been paying attention. So anyway, that's that. Let's switch over to my last hitch, or my current hitch that I'm currently on. It's an incomplete hitch. We don't have fuel in there because I only fueled up one time. So this was coming out of the house. I went over to Saratoga, Wyoming, picked up some lumber. That paid $1,100 to go to Lincoln, Nebraska. That was our loaded miles. It paid an all-in mileage of $1.85 loaded. And by the time I got that delivered with my deadhead, it was $1.47. Then I picked up out of Iowa, going over to Casper, Wyoming, and that's where I sit today. And it is. I already delivered. I actually delivered this on Saturday. It was an odd case where I was able to deliver on Saturday. And that was 566 miles, booked at $18.25 for $3.22 a mile, and that it was able to boost our all-in rate for the hitch up to $2 a mile. So that's where we sit today, is $2 a mile. And I booked a load going to Chicago for tomorrow, and I want to say, I'm pretty sure it was 1,173 miles, and I booked it for $2,000. So by the time I get to Chicago, we'll be at $1.87. Yeah. So, and then out of Chicago, let's go ahead and take a peek real quick because I have that in here already. So let's see. Out of Chicago, what are we going to get? So these would be our options out of Chicago, assuming that everything stays the same. There'll be a lot more loads available because I deliver Wednesday. So right now, Monday and Tuesday, there'll be a lot more loads available. So I'll probably get pretty lucky out of Chicago. I want to go to Washington because there's a family event that I'd like to get to over there. And I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time, but let's see. We could go to, oh, that's not good. Florida. We could go to Florida for $2.38 a mile. Let's look rate per mile. If we want to keep it close and keep a high rate per mile, we could do $3.87 a mile going to Ohio. Take a bigger load down to Virginia. I'd probably prefer this one. Although this would be Wednesday. Yeah, 700 miles. We could get that delivered before Friday for sure. Pennsylvania. Don't love Pennsylvania. Kentucky. That'd be good. Kind of a short haul. TQL. I hate how they don't put any notes in ever. They only put the post ID in. That could be a good load. 255 a mile with our deadhead. It's a 42-mile deadhead, and that'd be a nice short haul for the midweek. And we'd probably get pretty lucky out of there on Thursday with a big load. So that's kind of our availability after that goes. So that's our numbers. That's our real true numbers. This is just a mock, what I call a mock test from the load board. And again, this always looks better because hypothetically we can take any load and every load's available to us and we always can book it, right? And some of those loads very likely might have been multi-stop and not posted that way. They might have been a multi-stop load and not been accurate to the mileage, right? In other words, it might have said it goes from point A to point B. Well, you've got to go a couple of different stops before you get there, and then the mileage went up. So these tests never come in perfect. They're always skewed on the high side. So don't take this 291 a mile and think you can do 291 a mile. The best I've been able to do by keeping it in the south, I think I got to, this was more towards spring when Flatbed was more on fire, and I think I got to 280 a mile for the week, which was pretty good, but I don't think I've ever hit 290. So between 250 and 275 a mile is what you can probably hope to do in the real world, keeping it in the south. And when you do that, you're keeping mileage low and you're going to probably have a low revenue. The one thing I do like about Flatbed over van is that we can go places that van can't. We can take much longer loads and get lucky. Flatbed, you get lucky a lot. In other words, for example, I took a load to Casper, Wyoming. That would be committing suicide in van, right? You'd never go to Casper, Wyoming. You'd get screwed. Well, I went to Casper, Wyoming, and I got lucky. I got a load coming out of Casper, Wyoming, going to Chicago for it was $1.65 before I talked him up $100. So I don't know whether it'd be probably $1.80 something. So we end up getting fairly lucky a lot in the flatbed space, in places you wouldn't think about getting lucky. Like you can go to bad markets with the flatbed, and you can get out of there. Um, Whereas the van, you end up getting screwed a lot. So you have to be very, 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 very careful with the van going places. Whereas the flatbed, you're kind of a little more open. You can take those long hauls over the weekend to places like Utah, Montana, um, Casper, Wyoming, or even North Dakota, and you might get screwed, but about 50% of the time you get lucky. So it's a little bit more. The flatbed ends up putting us in a little bit better spot to get higher revenue per month, because we can take those longer hauls into areas that we normally would consider a no-go zone. So that's what I like about flatbed, um, as opposed to dry van. Even though when you look at the actual rates, well, let's look at the actual rates. That's one more thing we want to do. I know this video is getting a little long, guys, but um, if we look here, let's look at the van market. I haven't looked at this in a while. Here's the van. Basically, you've got the Midwest is on fire, the South is on fire, it looks like, and California. But again, I'll bet you California is only on fire if you go to bad spots like Wyoming or Colorado. Okay, so let's look here. What I like to do is scroll down here. At the bottom, we're going to see, okay, so this is the line haul average. It's increased 2 cents a mile, that's good, to $1.67. Well, when we looked at flatbed, so $1.67 for van, that is national line haul average. Let's look at national line haul average for flatbed. It's quite a bit higher, I know that. Where are we at here? $2.05 a mile. So we're looking at $2.05 versus $1.67. That's a considerable number. Now, one thing that we look at, or I look at, is I look at the van market and I say, that is I have this idea that I could go buy trucks, buy cheap dry vans, hire drivers, and go make money in the van market because it's easy. There's no strapping, there's no securing, there's no tarping, none of the stuff that requires a lot of education for the drivers. A lot of, we have to hire drivers in the flatbed world that know what the heck they're doing, right? And I don't want to say that we can hire bad drivers in van. We want to hire quality drivers that don't have accidents, know what they're doing, speak English, all the stuff. But we don't have to wonder if they know how to tarp, because they don't tarp. So pretty simple. Dry van is as simple as you can get, right? There's nothing that can really go wrong. When we're booking, we have to worry about weight and where it's going. If it fits in the dry van and the doors close, we're good to go, right? So I have this idea that you can make a bunch of money. The problem is when you look at that rate, $1.67 a mile. Whew, that gets tough, right? And can we beat $1.67 a mile? I'm going to tell you, I normally stay pretty close to this 205. Whatever this DOT number is, I can technically beat it because I can normally hit it even with my deadhead, right? But like, for example, let's go to Jeff's numbers, which were pretty, under the 205. But when we remove deadhead, hang on, negative. When we remove deadhead, 209. So I beat that average, right? Because the DAT is without deadhead, of course. So I technically beat the average, even running to the West Coast and to Florida. I did, see, we started in the West Coast, we went to Florida, then we went back to the West Coast. So even going to bad areas, I still beat the DAT average. So, but not by much. And once we figure in deadhead, so normally I can end up hitting this number with deadhead. I didn't this time with Jeff's hitch because, like I said, We were opting for long loads rather than high rate per mile, because I didn't have time to be booking him every day. You know what I mean? I didn't have time to be doing paperwork, doing rate cons, making calls every day. I was doing stuff. I was purchasing trucks. I was renting cars. I was doing all this stuff. And so I just opted for these long loads that booked him up for the whole week. You didn't have to think about it. We had paying freight for the whole week, done deal. And it ended up putting us a little bit behind on the average, but still we made money. So it wasn't a big deal. So where was I at here? So when you look at this, man, the extra 40 cents, 35 cents or whatever it is for flatbed over dry van. Yes, you got a tarp. Yes, you got a chain. You got to buy all those pieces of, you got to buy all the gear that it takes, and the trailer rental. If you're going to rent a trailer, it's a lot more money to rent a flatbed than a dry van. If you're going to buy a flatbed, a lot more money to buy a flatbed than a dry van. You've got to have toolboxes on your flatbed. A lot more stuff to do, right? But for that 35 cents a mile extra, that makes you profitable when the $1.67 puts you at a loss in a lot of cases. If you're going to pay a driver 65 cents a mile and you think you're going to run the truck at $1 a mile, after paying the driver, I don't think you can do that. I think it's been proven multiple times. It's very difficult to do that. $1.67 is borderline under most people's break-even point, whereas $2.05 in the flatbed space, that is slightly above most people's break-even point. So we start looking at flatbed like, okay, it's the only way to survive. I'd love to buy some dry vans. I'd love to hire some dry van drivers because, like I mentioned before, it's simple, very easy, much better fuel mileage. But ultimately, it's under our break even, so we can't do it. So anyway, I think that's all I wanted to do for this video, guys. Hopefully you got some value out of this. Hopefully it maybe taught you something or you learned something. The different load board subscriptions, if you're going to sign up for a load board subscription and you run dry van, I would really consider DAT. It's a little bit better for dry van. However, I love Truck Stop's ability to really sort your rates, right? Sort your distance, sort your rates. That's very, very handy. So I don't know what to tell you. You're going to find a little bit more loads available for van on DAT, or at least that's been, traditionally that's been the case. But you're going to be bombarded with a lot of loads that you don't want to take. That you can't really sort properly, I don't think, unless they've changed some things. But anyway, that's good enough for this video, guys. I'm kind of rambling on. It's getting a little bit long. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if what you guys are seeing. I'd really be curious to know in the van market, since I'm not in that market, where are you guys running? What part of the country? And then what are you able to do really actually after your deadhead? Do you find that you can beat that DAT number of the $1.67? Do you feel like you can only beat it by a few cents? Do you feel like you're getting under it? Where are you able to get to? What is your actual, all-in rate per mile after your deadhead? I'd love to hear that. And then anybody in the flatbed space also, I'd love to hear the same thing. What are you able to do? I mean, I'm sharing my numbers. I'm not sharing them to brag. I'm just sharing them to, this is what we're able to do. If you want to run flatbed, this is probably what you could do. I very much think you can beat this number because I know that we can beat this number if I'm not focused on long hauls. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, guys.